Hi everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to have two presentations today. Kindrat is going to start us off with the presentation prior to which
Hydro.
Okay. Kindrat Beregovyi is a computer science PhD student with a passion for computer graphics. He is currently working as a research assistant in CCOM-JHC data visualization research.
Thank you. I'm Kindrat Beregovyi, and I'm a PhD student of computer science. And I will present you an application that we are using to edit point clouds in VR. So first of all, I need to switch slide. Okay, not that much. So I'm working in a data visualization lab. And mostly what we are doing is taking a lot of information and trying to understand how to visualize it. In some cases, we are running studies to understand how to do it better. In other cases, we are creating standards to visualize information, and one of which was S111 standard. Also, we are analyzing information because before you visualize, sometimes you need to analyze it. So I will be talking about point clouds, and you can get point clouds in a lot of different ways. Most of which you can know it's multibeam sonar, lidar, and structure from motion. So the problem is that you need them to clean the information and view that information. And the problem is that when you're talking about point clouds, it's inherently 3D object, and you need first of all the same level of dimensionality. So essentially, if you are using 2D screen, then you have a problem because you're using 2D screen and you are trying to view 3D information. That's a problem. Second, you don't have a hard surface, so you don't have usual clues, for example, shadows or shading or something like that. So that's another huge problem. And a lot of studies show that you need the same dimensionality of your tools to make some work on the object. So we try to use 3D monitors because they have the same dimensionality. It helps, but the problem is you don't have a lot of 3D monitors right now, so it's hard to buy and all that. So then we thought, okay, we can use VR because right now it's a little bit easier to buy. It's not that hard to acquire. Then you have two screens essentially. So it will give you depth perception. That's very helpful. Then you will have the device that's coupled to your head. So essentially then you will move and that will give you a parallax motion. So you will see a lot more depth even from that motion. Then also you have two controllers and it's a lot easier to use them to edit something. And you will have 6 degrees of freedom. You won't have that with mouse and keyboard. And that's kind of great, that's powerful, but we need to create an app that could use all of that power to edit point clouds. So first of all, I would try to say what kind of information we had at first. It was a Lower Mississippi River precision navigation project, and we get that information for like over 3 years. So a lot of that information was about just bathymetry, and that's great. But also they had a lot of information in terms of point cloud, and it was used just to check whether the charts was correct or not. And that's kind of wasteful because essentially you have, I don't know, hundreds of gigabytes of information that is useful as information about real world, but you use it just for charts. That's basic. So we thought, well, we can use it. So the first thought was that we have a ship simulator and we use it as just a background. And that's very helpful to give you some clues where you are in the world, and it gives a lot more than just some generic 3D shapes. Then in the same ship simulator, we can show the air gaps, and it's a lot better than if you create the 3D structure by your own hand, like that bridge, you can model it, but it won't have the real world 3D structure. That's a lot more accurate when you are using point clouds. One of the problems is noise, and we thought, well, that's a huge kind of treasure of information, but why nobody is using that? And that's because of the noise. And that's just because how those point clouds are created. When you have a lidar, it will be noisy to have a lot of noisy returns. And although there are some kind of algorithms that will help with that, still you should manage that noise. So then we was thinking, okay, well, we have that problem. We are living in an age of AI. We should use some automation. That's kind of true and not true, because you have a different type of noises, and some type of noises are easy to automate. For example, this first one, and we have algorithms that automate that. If you have some kind of small fires, some small points in some random positions, it's easy to detect them. Then you have a clustered noise, systemic noise. It's also easy to detect. Reflections, moving objects, it's kind of in the middle. But then you will have embedded noise. Embedded noise is when you have a real 3D object, but inside that object, you will have some kind of noise. It's very hard to differentiate by algorithms. Also, you will have transient objects like ships, boats, and all that stuff. You need a person that will try to understand whether you need to delete it or not. And without person, I don't know, maybe in some future there will be AI that could do that, but we don't see it. And it's very hard for us to do that. So you need a person. So because of that, we created a small application, proof of concept, to allow us to edit the videos and to show it to people. And then we run a study in which we are trying to understand how fast you will delete the points in VR application and in different 2D tools like Garris, for example. So, and essentially we showed that people that are using our VR application will be a lot faster to delete the points and a lot more accurate, because at some positions it's very hard to delete in 2D. It's a lot easier to do it in 3D, especially when you have two controllers and you can move data with your one hand and delete with another. So that's great. So as I said, there was a problem that when you are trying to play with proof of concept on small point clouds, it's easy because they're small. When you are trying to develop an application, that's a lot harder because first of all, you have a lot of types of VR headsets, and you need to support all of them. To solve that problem, firstly, we developed the plugin to Unity that helps to alleviate the problem that you have a lot of VR headsets and something will change and you need to change your application. That help with that. Next, you need georeference, because essentially, when you're working with small, small point clouds that are artificial, you don't need any georeference. But if you're working with real world, you need that. So that's why we also have a plugin to our plugin that will handle that. Beside that, when you are talking about real world point clouds, you will have point clouds that are 100 million points or even more. And that's a very hard task for computers even right now. So even to render them, it's pretty hard. So, and then when you're talking about editing, it's a lot more complex because you need to understand what part of point cloud to update and memory management, all that stuff. So that was my part of work because I'm kind of interested in computer graphics. So, and we kind of implemented a lot of algorithms that help with relieving that problem. So then also we implemented 2 additional layers. So first layer is just cards. That is very helpful, and I will show later why. Also satellite layers. For example, I was talking about transient objects. And for example, you see one of those objects and you need to decide whether it's really transient, maybe it's here for one day, or maybe it's docked or moored to some port and you should leave that. It's not a noise. It would be useful for other people. So, and you can use satellite images from different years to understand whether it's stationary or not stationary. So that's a brief example of our application. That's a UI. And here it's moored ship and, no, it's not here. Yeah, here. So it's docked ship and we need to delete just a ship, not the more buoys, because it's stationary, and you can saw that on the AC chart that was previously shown here. That's a quick example how it's working. So we not just developed that application, but we used that. We cleaned a huge chunk of information that you saw from the previous slides. So, and we cleaned 90 miles around New Orleans, and that's pretty bad in terms of noise region, because there are a lot of infrastructure there. So that was pretty hard part of the work. And we had a pretty good speed, 10 miles per hour. And you can imagine what it will be if you will try to use 2D applications. It would be a lot more time and effort. So another question is what else we can do with that information and with our application. So our main goal is to support national bathymetric source workflow. And we saw that using that workflow, people are not deleting points. So they are just classifying the points as bad data or I don't know, some noise or something. So, and to make it easy for them, we created a classifier functionality, and you can use your own like labels or use a standard S57. Also, we introduced a voice control. So I will try to explain why. So essentially, when you're in VR and when you try to change your label of classification, like I need to label those as trees or those as sheep, it's kind of hard to type it in because you can't see keyboard. You need to like call that menu and manually select the label or something. And if you have 100 labels, that's tedious. So the voice control will help with it. So that's an example of how you can integrate your labels. You can do it via just a text file or our web-based application that could create that text file. And also you can see that here we can specify the voice commands. So it could be not just only one voice command. That's a kind of example of classification. So that's what we classified, and that's the menu of what I was talking about. And you can imagine if you have hundreds of those, it will be very hard to choose. Also, we look at how NOAA workers are doing their job, and they are using QGIS. And the problem was that you need to switch context. You need to say, well, okay, I need to load that point cloud in our application, do some stuff, save it, and then load with QGIS. A lot easier if you will have the plugin in QGIS and press one button, get it in VR, and then when you are finished, it will be loaded again. So that's very helpful. In order, what you should have to work with our application, it should be pretty decent gaming PC. Nothing super special, but it won't be just like an office PC. In terms of VR headsets, almost every VR headset would work, but you need to know that it should be not standalone, because standalone means that you will have a cell phone inside. I mean, cell phone chip inside, so it will be pretty weak and it won't be able to handle it. So it's already working application. You can download it from that link. So we'll be happy to receive any feedback. So in summary, I should say that we showed that it's very hard to automate. You need a person to decide whether it's a noise or not in a lot of cases. And one way to do it, one way to accelerate the work is just to make the interface for the user a lot easier to use, instead of just like having a lot more GPUs or something. So, and we showed that VR is a lot better in that sense. And although VR is not very conventional and not a lot of people are used to use it, we show that it's very easy to use and it's accurate intuition, and it's also easier to do that. So if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer.
Why Alexa is not among the co-authors?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It would be better to have ChatGPT or Bing.
Wait, was it Cortana?
Cortana is from Microsoft. Alexa is from Amazon. Yeah, but anyway, nowadays ChatGPT is more kind of famous. So I don't know, maybe in future. Well, I'm pretty sure in future it will be automated, but like it's not that easy if you're talking about transient objects, all that stuff. So for now, it's not automated. Well, partially automated. We have functions to delete some very common noise. It's not all.
Is there an efficient undo function if you
Yeah.
take too much out?
Yes, and we had a lot of problems with those functions, but it should work now. I would say that.
So voice activated commands. So how do you are you defining things as trees and then classifying, so they're classifying them as trees and then you say trees and it shows you all the trees?
It actually changes the, like, when you are holding your controller, it will show like the label at which you are classifying when you're editing, and it will change that label. It won't show you the trees. It will change what label you're like specifying.
Okay, so it's not, I see. So it's just like a feature classification.
It's essentially just like a UI. It changes what you are like classifying. So it's like if you have a controller and you will see like now I'm when I will pick the controller and it will try to like draw something, it will be saying, okay, that's trees. So you're editing the classification. You're personally editing, and you just change the color, I would say, instead of classification. So now my brush is red. No, That's what has changed.
How reliable did you find the voice recognition? Particularly, was it reliable that there was background noise?
That's an interesting question. I didn't personally test that. We are using, as if I'm correct, we are using an API from Windows, maybe even Cortana API. I don't know. But from people that use that, but I think it was 3 or 4 testers.
I was super impressed.
Correct.
I hate talking to the computer, but it worked every time. I didn't have like office noises in my office doing it alone, but I was pretty impressed.
So what I was thinking of is that many of the applications for this would be on fairly noisy ships. If it has an internet component, that's problematic. But if the background noise is an issue, that may be problematic as well.
I don't think it's an internet-based thing.
This is what was all
Yeah,
the
maybe
only
it'll
thing-
use a directional microphone.
Right, the only thing the internet would be used for is to download the ENCs or base maps for any of the geolocation.
Well, I was thinking about the voice, if the voice recognition wasn't doing it locally, if it was sending
No,
it
it
data
is.
out and getting response back.
Built into Windows, so it's doing all the processing
So I'd be
locally.
interested to see what the background noise behavior was like, so that we had some sort of metric on where this could be deployable.
Well, if you really want it, Brian, they make a new device and it's the most ridiculous looking thing ever. It's a muffle. Tripped over calling for your mouth. And so you can yell and talk into your VR about disturbing other people. So good luck convincing people.
If we tell the hydrographic text we want them to put on a gag, I think we might not get very far with this idea.
I'll also say the headsets typically have a microphone situated like right here underneath, so it's getting
So
a
that
very
may
high
be,
signal.
yeah, okay.
I was just wondering, have you use this for like Chimera specifically? Like, if that's the tool you're used to editing, how do you get the point clouds out of that software, edit it, and then back in? And
Well, we used Chimera just as a reference, as like a 2D tool, how like our VR application is better. If Chimera can output less file, then we can use those files. But we don't have direct kind of integration.
so how do you handle like
Chimera, just from that point, before we finish, Chimera does have an API you can get at their data, but it's not hugely well supported. So it is possible to reach it and get the data, but it'd be better if it came out as a separate file.
Liz Widener was able to give me something straight out of one of those packages and we're in full of it. Whether or not it retains all of its hydrographic information is questionable.
I think that would be like, that would be what I would see as a barrier to adoption for like widespread adoption.
Yeah, but that's something that we can do with the developers and we say, can you do this with these please? It's not that, that's just busy work. Interfaces, just busy. Data interfaces like that, not interfaces like that. That's magic.
Yeah. It looks really helpful.
Yeah, it is helpful.
With this making processing LiDAR data a lot easier, do you recommend or would you like to see in the future LiDARs on more surveying vessels if they're going down like Mississippi River?
You mean that like the person with LiDAR will be also editing, like it gets raw data and then editing right away on the ship?
Like should LiDAR data be added to the kinds of data that we collect on a typical survey mission?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like the more data you have about real world, it will help, like in a lot of sense. Even if right now you won't use it, you maybe will use it like later, or maybe some AI will use it like 10 years after that.
I'll say definitely yes, because one of the things that I talk to river pilots on the Mississippi about is they're very frustrated that some of these facilities, like places where tankers will come in and hook up to a pipeline, they've been expanded massively in the last few years, but they're not updated on the charts yet. And so there's like, I don't know what is the holdup, but if you have a LiDAR scanner, you go past one of these facilities, you capture such high resolution data that updating the chart is almost trivial. You just draw boxes on top of this stuff. So it's a really quick way to update charts and chart features very accurately.
You talk to RSC
Just
about
just
this?
just
well aware.
just to avoid annoying our FCD colleagues, updating charts is never trivial. It's trivial.
Thank you.
The whole process between collecting data and QC 50,000 times, it's a long time, even if you just can automate, draw a line.
All I know is I'm on some
That
really
translates.
spicy email chains. Things that have been there for 2 years and not on chart yet, so. Anything that can speed it up. Also, you can do cool change detection stuff too, right?
Everyone, this is Saulė Medelytė. She is our visiting scholar from Lithuania. She's a second-year PhD student in at the Marine Research Institute in Lithuania. Her supervisor is Dr. Andrijas Siaulis. Šulis. Her research interests focus primarily on marine biotope identification using underwater imagery.
I was here for 1 month as a visiting scholar, and I have to be, I'm very grateful for Yuri, Kim, and John for accepting me here and giving their precious time for me and showing what they are doing. As an exchange, I would like to show what we are doing on the other side of the Atlantic in Lithuanian Marine Research Institute. Sorry for my accent and my English. Hopefully you will understand everything. So we are mainly focusing, as a Benthic research group, we are mainly focusing on 3 topics. It's habitat mapping, benthic ecological functioning, and benthos ecological status. First of all, of course, since we are located next to the Baltic Sea, we are mainly focused to the Baltic Sea area, and we are focused also to the Curonian Lagoon, but we are not limited to only these areas. We also have experience in working in Svalbard Arctic, in Norwegian Sea, and in Mediterranean Sea, and others. So first of all, I don't know if you have known this, but Baltic Sea is the world's largest inland brackish sea. The salinity can range from 31 to 1 parts per thousand. And in our Lithuanian coast, the salinity is between 6 to 8 parts per thousand. And this is partly due to the fact of Baltic Sea topography. So it's hard for the Northern Sea water to come in and give all the salty water full of oxygen into our Baltic Sea. And also because we have low evaporation and we have a large river basin, and there's a lot of rivers who are putting this fresh water as well. So the water residence time is only 25 years. So the sea is quite shallow. On average, it's 55 meters depth. It also has some other problems like eutrophication, and also after Cold War, there was some chemical weapons. So the guys thought that it's a good idea to discard them in the Baltic Sea, just put them somewhere. Okay, so last year we did a reef monitoring program, which was first national reef monitoring program, and we took 565 video stations between 3 and 73 meters depth. And from these videos, we can see different biological and geological features. On top of that, we had in situ observations. So divers were taking benthic samples and notes underwater. Also, we had some more acoustics done, and in the deeper areas, we had dredge samples. The points were located between each other quite close. So the distance between each point is like 300 meters in the inshore and like 1 nautical mile in the offshore part. So importance of the reefs are so when we have the reefs as a protected area designated by Natura 2000 network, which is like a European network for all terrestrial and marine areas. So they are protected, and according to our Benthic Habitat Directive, which is a directive for also Europe, we need to protect them and maintain their good ecological status. And in order to do that, of course, we need to know what we have here. In the reefs have, especially in the inshore area, in the shallower part, we have macroalgae, and macroalgae create like micro communities for other crustaceans and amphipods and polychaetes. Also, in these areas, where like one of the algae, Porcellaria lumbricalis, it is spawning ground for some fishes and some commercial fishes like herring. And also, these reefs are one of the main feeding grounds for migratory and wintering birds. Of course, reefs can be threatened by different biological and physical disturbances. So we had, as for biological disturbance, we have invasive species, and one of them is round goby, which ate majority of blue mussel population in the infralittoral area since 2030, something like that. And regarding physical disturbances, for example, if you build wind farms there, also we have beach nourishing, when government puts more sand on the beaches. Some beaches during the storms, they got, not beaches, but the sand got washed away again, and some of the sand can end up in these reefs. Mainly what we currently did, so I analyzed more than 500 of these images. So we have different segments, and each segment is 10 meters length. And so we get different features for them, like biological coverage of different algae, of blue mussels, then some abundance of shrimps, and so on. But as you can imagine, this is like a very common problem for all marine biologists, is how to like watch all of these videos. It's hard, it's time consuming, and sometimes it's not even financially good option. So what we did, we cooperated with. Hold on. So this is a bit more about the reefs. This is what maps, habitat maps we produced from them. So 84% of our reefs, they are consistent of stable substrates of boulders and cobbles. Also, so here you can see this some of the species that we have, distribution of those species. Also, so here is distribution of blue mussel. As you can see, we don't have them in this infralittoral area because around Gobi it's a majority of them. In 3% of the stations, these blue mussels contains from 20 to 50% of coverage, which is okay, but in the rest it's only like 5% of the coverage. So this is what I haven't finished. So then because we had such a large amount of data and we have to do this reef monitoring, it means that we have to come back there again after like several years and analyze also again that huge amount of underwater video data. So we cooperated with another university, and this is the who helped us to create a deep learning model. This is the annotation that in this first figure. This is part of the annotation that we get, and so during this study, it's not this one. Okay, but during the study we used deep learning semantic segmentation on PSP net architecture and ResNet as a backbone with 50 epochs, and we did twofold cross validation, holdout validation, and lose one out validation to assess the quality of our model. And apparently, so twofold transect stratified cross validation means that we have 2D underwater video mosaic, and then we are training on one side and testing on another. And lose one out means that here, for example, we have several of underwater mosaics. We training on those and then testing on one full mosaic. And then hold one out means that they just input some different image that we never, that the model or that's completely different. So the best performance was by twofold transect stratified cross validation. And here below you can see these are two mosaics for perennial algae lumbricalis. And in the first mosaic, you can see how the expert annotated this feature. And in the second, you can see how the deep model performance. And this is the same for blue mussels. So as you can see here, results were very similar. And for example, for them, it was the difference only up to 1% between the ground truth and the model predictions. And for boulders, it was up to 6%. But we have to have in mind that we were using this very the same mosaic, so the image was very similar. But if we would give some different images that we do have filmed in different conditions, then the model wouldn't perform that well. So we need to increase number of annotated images, and hopefully the result will be better. Another thing that I contributed to this Benthic Research Habitat Group is my master's work, which was about Benthic community's description in Arctic, in Svalbard. And here we had used underwater imagery, and the novelty of the study was that usually in this particular area, scientists are working with large research vessels, so they don't like to go deep into the base because of the melting glacier and the shallow part. So they are afraid to crash the ship. So what we had specifically designed polar yacht, which is designed for this kind of conditions, and we were able to come closer to the glacials, and we sampled the stations between 2 to 65 meters depth, which is pretty shallow. Another thing is that most of the people, they are working in the Kongsfjorden, in this part, and they're not really working a lot in the other, and especially in the smaller bays. So in this study, we tried to check if we can see differences in benthic composition between glaciated fjords that are impacted by the melting glacier, and between ice-free fjords where historically there was no glacier at that for a long time, and also to see geographical differences. So these are the glaciated bays. These are our points, current points in 2008 and 2019. So as you can see, the glacial really melted, and it wasn't even 100 years ago past. And this is not meters. This is what we are talking about, kilometers of melted glaciers. From the underwater video imagery, we had like 31 morphospecies, or in other words, different organisms that we're not able to identify to the lowest taxonomic level. So we chose to use this term morphospecies. And we grouped these morphospecies into different functional groups. So we had mobility and feeding mode. When we were looking into morphospecies composition in different bays, we saw that in majority of the bays, sublids were dominating. These are tube-dwelling polyphytes. And in one bay, we had brittle stars. Then, when we were looking into functional groups, we saw that, as expected, we had more motile scavengers in the glaciated, impacted bays because of the large organic matter and sedimentation. A lot of sedimentary organisms, they are not living there because the filtration organs are how to say, I don't know. So yeah, and we also saw the differences, small differences in geographical areas. So we saw that we checked two factors: ice-free, glaciation history, and the geographical area, and we saw that glaciation history had a bit more impact than geographical area. And as I mentioned, we had brittle stars in one of our bays as a dominating species. So we thought that maybe we should try to automatically quantify them. And we also used this. And the model result based on intersection over union, which is a metric to see how the model performs. It was 75%. But for us, knowing the coverage of the brittle star, it wasn't that ecologically important. For us, it's important to know the abundance. So when intersection over union, so we can imagine if you have a brittle star, you have an annotated brittle star, and if the model predicts like that, it still predicts the place of the brittle star, but doesn't cover, the intersection over union value suffers. So what we did, we switched a bit to blob counts. So we were counting this segmentation as a one unit, and then the model was performing a bit better. However, as you can see from this image, here you can see how the expert annotated these brittle stars. So sometimes you can see that they are like super small, and it's hard, even sometimes hard to see with the human eye. So we can't expect the model to see those kind of brittle stars. So as you can see here, it doesn't classify them as being there. Then our colleagues created this segmentation platform web page where you can put different type of models into this page, and you can input the image of your interest, and then it will give you information about the case coverage of for example, brittle star or other species of your interest. And we didn't stop in the Arctic here. We also started a new project, and we've been in Arctic last year, and we're planning to go this summer as well. So we noticed that when the glacier is melting, in some cases, we have these newly formed lagoons. And as you can see from these maps, the lagoons are getting larger. Lagoons are getting larger and larger. And this is how it looks like when it was still as a glacier. And here we want to see, this is like opportunity to see what kind of species are the first to colonize this lagoon. And other hydrological even factors. For example, we found out that there is a large thermocline and halocline in this lagoon because of the salty water coming from the ocean and fresh water coming from the glacier. So last year they collected many samples, as you can see here, and even did a biochemical experiment on the site. The other works that have been done in our Benthic group was when they were wanted to see on what kind of hard diet gastropods and amphipods has. So these are gastropods, for example. These are amphipods in different Coronian lagoon places. So we have two sides, southern side and the northern side. So the northern side typically has a bit larger salinity and not as much of eutrophication there. The result was that gastropods and amphipods consume mainly on sedimentary organic matter in the southern side, and in the northern side they also were grazing on epiphytes. Then there was another recent study done where they were looking into the long-tailed duck changes in the diet. So as I mentioned, these are one of these ducks that are feeding on blue mussels, and they are migratory wintering birds that like to stay in the areas where we have reefs. So in 2005, they did stomach analysis of these birds, and they found out that over 90% of the stomach was constituted of these blue mussels. But in the recent study in 2022, they found out that they had 20% of blue mussels in it. So that the diet changed completely, and this is because of the invasive species that we had before. Fortunately, stable value of body index didn't affect them, and this showed that they are flexible to quickly adjust to the environment. Then another study was done where they were looking into what kind of juvenile fish are associated with pondweed and harophyte habitats in the Coronian lagoon. So they did they tried to use this novel method, which was never used in the Baltic region before. So they had this pop-up net. They put this underwater. They wait for some time, and this pop-up net just emerges and takes all the fish inside. And then they will quantify them. And they found out that half of the species were associated with this macrophyte stance. The other thing they were working on is biotop mapping using drone imagery. So this is just a workflow of this biotop mapping. It's also somewhere in Lithuania. But currently they are working on 3D beach wrack model creation to estimate beach wrack biomass in our shores. Also, our institute is actively involved in our study process. So we are we have students, and we are to give them like the actual data, so the work of what they are doing is meaningful. And quite often if there is a good student, they get involved into the projects even when they are still in the bachelor's. Now they have this laboratory practice where they have to collect at least 100 hours in different fields. They can choose what they want to do. For example, helping some other scientists, and this really helps to see what other people are doing. And it's very nice to gain more experience like that. This is also some of our facilities. So we have very modern laboratories, and we have aquaculture systems where they can grow trouts and shrimps there. And so this is not only our Benthic Habitat Group in the Marine Research Institute. We have much more. We have people who are working with biological invasions, with genetics, plankton, biochemistry, fisheries, coastal and marine management, environmental remote sensing, and also other groups. So if you are interested, for example, what other groups are doing, you can look for this link below, and then you can see what other people are doing. And also, if you have any questions, if you maybe saw something interesting that you would like to, some similarities to what you are doing, feel free to contact me, even if it's not related to Benthic, Ventos, or anything like that. Thank you.
when you show the map of the Baltic Sea, you've got a lot of countries that are bordering on the Baltic Sea. So it's a shared resource. And the things that you're looking at are not confined, the importance of them are not confined just to Lithuania. Can you talk about cooperative research centers, Baltic Sea research cooperatives, or how much cooperation there is between countries to examine the types of things that you're looking at?
On the things that I'm looking at, well, we have quite a number of different directives and different groups of scientific people. Like we have HELCOM Commission, then we have Marine Strategy Framework Directive, we have Habitat Benthic Directive. So these are like groups of people of their field. For example, it can be also habitat mapping and something related to benthos, and they will come together and think about the ways how we should keep our seas in the favorite condition. I know that Latvians now started reef monitoring program as well. They have a bit less expertise in this field, but and I guess like in the recent years we will see what they have to show us here.
Thank you.
The habitat classification that I believe is your project. You may have missed this, but are you working in like backscatter to that classification, or is it solely based on individual sites?
We're working with backscatter.
Backscatter, so like backscatter.
No, I'm not, but we had the acoustical data before, so we know where are our reefs. So we already know the boundaries, where they are, and now we are doing this from the biological point of view.
Okay, so you're specifically focusing on the reefs themselves and then the
Yes.
biological classification in.
Within those reefs. Yeah.
Was that a website you used to make the deep learning models?
It's a website as a proper prototype, but you can input your own model, and there's some models already there, so you can test your imagery on those models. But now they are very specific. So we have brittle stars, we have some things from Lithuania, there is some mountains from Arctic as well, like Laminaria and Seriantaria.
What's the name of the website or prototype?
The name is Demersal.
I'll email you that.
But you have to have a login to it.
Oh, okay.
But if there will be an update for this, for the more open, so I can inform you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So when you were talking about deep learning, you was using neural networks. Okay, so you use some pre-trained neural network and then train it additionally with your images, or it's like purely your neural network?
I think I'm not the one who was doing that, but I think that the PSP.NET is pre-trained, right? And there was also a Deep Lab version 3, and there are some others that we have tried to use.